Hello everybody, today we are going to be looking at some Wikipedia pages and we are going to select a random serial killer out of the Wikipedia serial killer list and we are going to read it. So let's begin. Today we are going to be reading Joseph James DeAngelo. Before we get started, if this is your first time seeing one of my videos, give it a like, share it, subscribe to my page. If this is not your first time, welcome back. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get started today. Joseph James DeAngelo, born November 8th, 1945, is an American serial killer, serial rapist, burglar, and former police officer who committed at least 13 murders, 51 rapes, and 120 burglaries across California between 1974 and 1986. This one is going to be good. That is quite the rap sheet. He is responsible for at least 3 separate crime sprees throughout the state, each of which spawned a different nickname in the press before it became evident that they were committed by the same person. In the San Joaquin Valley, he was known as the Visalia Ransacker before moving to the Sacramento area, where he became known as the East Area Rapist and was linked by modus operandi to additional attacks in Contra Costa County, Stockton, and Modesto. DeAngelo committed several serial murders in Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Orange counties, where he was known as the Night Stalker and later the original Night Stalker, owing to serial killer Richard Ramirez also being called the Night Stalker. So this guy was before Richard Ramirez. He is believed to have taunted and threatened both victims and police in obscure phone calls and possibly written communications. During the decades-long investigation, several suspects were cleared through DNA evidence, alibi, or other investigative methods. In 2001, after DNA testing indicated that the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same person, the combined acronym EARONS came into use. Erons? Interesting. East Area Rapist and original Night Stalker. The case was a factor in the establishment of California's DNA database, which collects DNA from all accused and convicted felons in California, and has been called second only to Virginia's in the effectiveness in solving cold cases. To heighten the awareness of the case, crime writer Michelle McNamara coined the name Golden State Killer in early 2013. How did I stumble upon the Golden State Killer today? On June 15, 2016, the FBI and the local law enforcement agencies held a news conference to announce a renewed nationwide effort offering a $50,000 reward for the Golden State Killer's capture. On April 24, 2018, the state of California charged 72-year-old DeAngelo with 8 counts of first-degree murder. Based upon DNA evidence, investigators had identified members of DeAngelo's family through forensic genetic genealogy. Yeah, I remember this now in the news. This was like Ancestry DNA that brought this guy down. I remember this now. This was also the first announcement connecting the Visalia Ransacker crimes to DeAngelo. Owing to California's statute of limitations on pre-2017 rape cases, DeAngelo could not be charged with 1970s rapes. I don't get why there is a statute of limitations on rape cases, especially if you have enough evidence. I could see if there's like no evidence whatsoever outside of like a he said, she said type of thing. But why would there be a statute of limitations on a rape case if you have DNA evidence to prove it? DeAngelo could not be charged with the 1970s rapes, but he was charged in August of 2018 with 13 related kidnappings and abduction attempts. On June 29, 2020, DeAngelo pled guilty to multiple counts of murder and kidnapping. As part of a plea bargain that spared him the death penalty, DeAngelo also admitted to numerous crimes in which he had not been formally charged, including rapes. On August 21, 2020, DeAngelo was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This is a long one, guys, so let's plug away at this. We're going to try to read fast. Early life and career. Joseph James DeAngelo Jr. was born on November 8, 1945 in Bath, New York, to Kathleen Lewis DeGroot and Joseph James DeAngelo, a sergeant in the United States Army. A relative reported that when D'Angelo was a young child, he witnessed the rape of his 7-year-old sister by 2 airmen in a warehouse in West Germany where the family was stationed at the time. Following D'Angelo's conviction, one of his sisters claimed that he was abused by their father while he was growing up. This is like the classic serial killer upbringing, it sounds like. Something traumatic, and then also you're being abused. So congratulations to his father for being a dickhead and raising a serial killer. There you go. Between 1959 and 1960, D'Angelo attended Mills Junior High School in the Rancho Cordova, California. Beginning in 1961, he attended Folsom High School, from which he received his GED certificate in 1964. He played on the school's junior varsity baseball team. Prosecutors reported that D'Angelo committed burglaries and tortured and killed animals during his teenage years. Classic. Like literally written in the stars to a T on what serial killers do when they're younger. This is literally writing the book. D'Angelo joined the United States Navy in September of 1964 and served for 22 months during the Vietnam War as a damage controlman on the cruiser USS Canberra and the destroyer tender USS Piedmont. Beginning in August 1968, D'Angelo attended Sierra College in Rocklin, California. He graduated with an associate's degree in police science with honors. He attended Sacramento State University in 1971, where he earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. D'Angelo later took postgraduate courses and further police training at the College of Sequoias in Visalia, then completed a 32-week police internship at the police department in Roseville. So this guy was not a dummy. He was a very intelligent person, it sounds like. Police officer. From May of 1973 to August 1976, D'Angelo was a burglary unit police officer in Exeter, having relocated from Citrus Heights. He then served in Auburn from August 1976 to July 1979, where he was arrested for shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent. What is dog repellent? Anyone know? Let me know in the comments what dog repellent is, because I have never heard of dog repellent. Yeah, let me know. That's weird. What is it? He was sentenced to 6 months of probation and fired that October. Shocker. I mean, you can't go out shoplifting while you're a police officer investigating burglaries. That's, yeah. During the process of being fired, D'Angelo threatened to kill the chief of police and allegedly stalked the chief's house. He's crazy. Marriage and relationships. In May of 1970, D'Angelo became engaged to nursing student Bonnie Jean Colwell, a classmate at Sierra College, but she broke it off in 1971 after D'Angelo became manipulative and abusive, culminating in his demand that she help him cheat on an abnormal psychology test. After the breakup, he attempted to force her to marry him by threatening her with a gun. That is not how you do it, buddy. In November of 1973, he married Sharon Marie Huddle in Placer, now called Loomis. In 1980, they purchased a house in Citrus Heights, where he was eventually arrested decades later. Huddle became a divorce attorney in 1982, and they had 3 daughters. 2 were born in Sacramento, and 1 was born in Los Angeles. The couple separated in 1991. I'm assuming you got taken to the cleaners because she was a divorce lawyer, so you probably didn't stand a chance of winning. Sorry, buddy. In July of 2018, several months after D'Angelo's arrest, Huddle filed for a divorce, which was finalized the following year. Employment. D'Angelo's employment record during the 1980s is unknown. From 1990 until his retirement in 2017, he worked as a truck mechanic at a Save Mart supermarket distribution center in Roseville. Loud outbursts. D'Angelo's brother-in-law claimed that D'Angelo would casually bring up the East Area rapist in conversation around the time of the original crimes. That's crazy. So he's essentially bragging to his brother-in-law without his brother-in-law knowing it. Neighbors reported that he frequently engaged in loud, profane outbursts. One neighbor reported that his family received a phone message from D'Angelo threatening to deliver a load of death because of their barking dog. He was living with a daughter and granddaughter at the time of his arrest. I don't know why that is in this paragraph, but we'll go with it. Crimes. DNA evidence linked D'Angelo to 8 murders in Goleta, Ventura, Dana Point, and Irvine. 2 other murders in Goleta lacking DNA evidence were linked by modus operandi. D'Angelo pleaded guilty to 3 other murders, 2 in Rancho Cordova and 1 in Visalia. He also committed more than 50 known rapes in the California counties of Sacramento, Contra Costa, Stanislaus, San Joaquin, Alameda, Santa Clara, and Yolo. And he was linked to hundreds of incidents of theft, burglaries, vandalism, peeping, stalking, and prowling. This guy was not a pleasant person to be around. Visalia ransacker, 1974 to 1976. It was long suspected that the training ground of the criminal who became the East Area rapist was Visalia. Although earlier Visalia crimes dated back as early as May of 1973, and the other sprees like that of Cordova cat burglar, Exeter ransacker, as well as Visalia burglaries that took place after the McGowan shooting, are now suspected to be linked as well. Over a period of 20 months, D'Angelo is believed to have been responsible for 1 murder and around 120 burglaries. Holy crap. In late April of 2018, the Visalia chief of police stated that while there was no DNA linking D'Angelo to the Central Valley cases, his department had other evidence that played a role in the investigation, and he was confident that the Visalia ransacker had been captured. Though the statutes of limitations for the burglaries have each been expired, D'Angelo was formally charged on August 13, 2018 with the first-degree murder of Claude Snelling in 1975. In 2020, D'Angelo pled guilty to the Snelling murder. Burglaries. The first recorded ransacking occurred on March 19, 1974, when the sum of $50 in coins was stolen from a piggy bank. Most of the ransacker's activities involved breaking into houses, rifling through and vandalizing the owner's possessions, scattering women's underclothes, and stealing a range of low-value items, while often ignoring banknotes and higher-valued items in plain sight. Why do it then? Like, what are you trying to get out of it? You're just trying to scare people? Why would you take $50 in coins and then leave other higher valued items? That makes no sense. Also, $50 in coins would just suck to have to carry around. The ransacker would also often arrange or display items in the house, and stolen items often included blue chip stamps, foreign or historic coins, and personal items such as single earrings, cufflinks, rings, and medallions, but also included 6 weapons and various types of ammunition. Multiple same-day ransackings were also common as well, including 12 separate incidences on November 30th, 1974. This guy was a busy guy, so I definitely think he was just doing this to either make a point or just to scare people. Because it doesn't seem like he was taking anything of value. The most common MOs for the burglaries included climbing fences and moving through established routes such as parks, walkways, ditches, and trails, attempting to pry open multiple points of entry, particularly windows, leaving multiple points of escape open, especially windows, as well as the house, garage, and garden doors, moving removed window screens into beds or into bedrooms, placing warning items such as dishes or bottles against the doors and on door handles, wearing gloves given the absence of fingerprint evidence. So it sounds like he was just planning to spend as much time in each location as possible when he was setting up like booby traps. If someone came home, he would be alerted and be able to get out of there. Smart, but also very creepy. Shootings. On September 11th, 1975, D'Angelo broke into the home of Claude Snelling, 45, at 532 Whitney Lane, now South Whitney Street. Snelling, a journalism professor at the College of the Sequoias, had previously chased a prowler discovered under her daughter's window around 10 p.m. on February 5th, 1975. On September 11th, he was awakened around 2 a.m. by strange noises. Upon leaving his bedroom, Snelling ran through the open back door and confronted ski-masked intruder in his carport attempting to kidnap his daughter, who had been subdued with threats of being stabbed or shot. Snelling was then shot twice, staggered back into the house to his wife, and later died. After the shooting, the assailant fled the scene, leaving behind a stolen bicycle at 615 Redwood Street. After the murder, Bess Snelling, 16, underwent hypnosis in order to gather further details. The Visalia police also committed more resources to apprehending the ransacker, and a $4,000 reward equivalent to $19,366 in 2021 was posted. Nighttime stakeouts were also set up near the houses that had previously been prowled, but the ransackings continued. Around 8:30 p.m. on December 12, 1975, a masked man entered the backyard of the house on 1505 West Kauai Avenue, near where the ransacker had been reported to frequent. When Detective William McGowan, on stakeout inside the garage, attempted to detain the man, the suspect shrieked, removed his mask, and feigned surrender after McGowan fired a warning shot. However, after jumping the fence to the house at 1501, he also pulled out a revolver with his left hand and fired once near McGowan's face, shattering his flashlight. Nearby officers rushed to aid McGowan, and the shooter was able to escape. Items collected as evidence included the flashlight, tennis shoe tracks, and dropped loot, namely blue chip stamps and a sock full of coins. What are blue chip stamps? Does anyone know? Let me know in the comments. East Area Rapist, 1976 to 1979. D'Angelo moved to the Sacramento area in 1976, where his crimes escalated from burglary to rape. His crimes initially centered on the then unincorporated areas of Carmichael, Citrus Heights, and Rancho Cordova, east of Sacramento. His initial modus operandi was to stalk middle-class neighborhoods at night in search of women who were alone in one-story homes. See, that's very specific. Usually near a school, creek, trail, or other open spaces that would provide a quick escape. So he was essentially doing his homework before he did any of these. He was seen a number of times, but always successfully fled. On one occasion, he shot and seriously wounded a young pursuer. Most victims had seen or heard of a prowler on their property before the attacks, and many had experienced break-ins. Police believe that the offender would conduct extensive reconnaissance in a targeted neighborhood, looking into windows and prowling into yards before selecting a home to attack. It was believed that he sometimes entered the homes of future victims to unlock windows, unload guns, and plant ligatures for later use. He frequently telephoned future homes, sometimes for months in advance, to learn their daily routines. This guy is like the most strategic burglarer that I've ever read about. Although D'Angelo originally targeted women alone in their homes or with children, he eventually preferred attacking couples. This change in modus operandi is believed to be a direct result of media reports claiming he only attacked women alone in the home. His usual method was to break in through a window or sliding glass door and awaken the sleeping occupants with a flashlight, threatening them with a handgun. Victims were subsequently bound with ligatures, often shoelaces, that he had found or brought with him. Then, blindfolded and gagged with towels that he had ripped into strips, the female victim was usually forced to tie up her male companion before she was bound. The bindings were often so tight the victim's hands were numb for hours after being untied. He then separated the couple, often stacking dishes on the male's back, and threatened to kill everyone in the house if he heard them rattle. This is crazy. He would move the woman to the living room and rape her, often repeatedly. A decade later, police reported that D'Angelo repeatedly said, "I hate you, Bonnie," during a 1978 rape, the 37th attack. This guy's crazy, clearly. Jeez. D'Angelo sometimes spent hours in the home ransacking closets and drawers, eating food in the kitchen, drinking beer, raping the women again, or making additional threats. Victims sometimes thought that he had left the house before he jumped from the darkness. He typically stole items, often personal objects and items with little value, but occasionally cash and firearms. He then crept away, leaving victims uncertain if he had left. He was believed to escape on foot through a series of yards and then use bicycles to go home or a car, making extensive use of parks, schoolyards, creek beds, and other open spaces that kept him off the streets. The East Area Rapist operated in Sacramento County from the first attacks on June 1976 until May of 1977. After a 3-month gap, he struck a nearby San Joaquin County in September before returning to Sacramento for all but one of the next 10 attacks. The rapist attacked 5 times during the summer of 1978 in Stanislaus and Yolo counties before disappearing again for 3 months. Attacks then moved primarily to Contra Costa County in October and lasted until July of 1979. Murders. A young Sacramento couple, Brian McGorry, a military policeman at Mather Air Force Base, and his wife, Katie McGorry, were walking their dog in the Rancho Cordova area on the night of February 2nd, 1978, near where 5 East Area Rapist attacks had occurred. The McGorrys fled after a confrontation in the street but were chased down and shot to death. Some investigators suspected that they had been murdered by the East Area Rapists because of their proximity to the other attack locations, and a shoelace was found nearby. The FBI announced on June 15, 2016 that it was confident that the East Area Rapists had murdered the McGorrys. On June 29, 2020, D'Angelo entered a plea of guilty to these murders. The original Night Stalker, 1979 to 1986. Shortly after the rape committed on July 5, 1979, D'Angelo moved to Southern California and began killing his victims. First, striking in Santa Barbara County in October, the attacks lasted until 1981 with a lone 1986 attack. Only the couple in the first attack survived, alerting neighbors and forcing the intruder to flee. The other victims were murdered by gunshot or bludgeoning. Since D'Angelo was not linked to these crimes for decades, he was known as the Night Stalker in the area, before being renamed the original Night Stalker after serial killer Richard Ramirez received the former nickname. 1979. On October 1st, an intruder broke in and tied up a Goleta couple. Alarmed at hearing him say, "I'll kill him," to himself, the man and the woman tried to escape when he left the room, and the woman screamed. Realizing that the alarm had been raised, the intruder fled on a bicycle. A neighbor, an FBI agent, responded to the noise and pursued the perpetrator, who abandoned the bicycle and the knife and fled on foot through local backyards. The attack was later linked to the Offerman-Manning murders by shoe prints and twine used to bind the victims. On December 30th, 44-year-old Robert Offerman and 35-year-old Deborah Alexander Manning were found shot to death at Offerman's condominium. Offerman's bindings were untied, indicating that he had lunged at the attacker. Neighbors had heard gunshots. Paw prints of a large dog were found at the scene, leading to speculation that the killer may have brought one with him. The killer had also broken into a vacant adjoining residence and stolen a bicycle, later found abandoned on a street north of the scene from a third residence in the complex. 1980. On March 13th, 33-year-old Charlene Smith and 43-year-old Lyman Smith were found murdered in their Ventura home. Charlene Smith had been raped. A log from a woodpile on the side of the house had been used to bludgeon the victims to death. Their wrists and ankles had been bound with drapery cord. An unusual Chinese knot, a diamond knot, was used on Charlene's wrists. The same knot was noted in the East Area Rapist attacks, at least one confirmed case of which had been publicly known. The murder was, therefore, briefly given the name Diamond Knot Killer. This guy has had like 7 different nicknames now. On August 19th, 24-year-old Keith Ellie Harrington and 27-year-old Patrice Briscone were found bludgeoned to death in their home. Patrice Harrington had also been raped. Although there was evidence that Harrington's wrists and ankles were bound, no murder weapon or ligatures were found at the scene. The Harringtons had been married for 3 months at the time of their deaths. Patrice was a nurse in Irvine, and Keith was a medical student at UC Irvine. Keith's brother Bruce later spent nearly $2 million supporting the California Proposition 69, authorizing DNA collection from all California felons and certain other criminals. 1981. On February 6, 28-year-old Manuela Whithun was raped and murdered in her Irvine home. Although Whithun's body had signs of being tied before it was bludgeoned, no murder weapon or ligatures were found. Though the victim was married, her husband was away hospitalized, and she was alone at the time of the attack. Whithun's television was found in the backyard, possibly the killer's attempt to make the crime appear to be a botched robbery. On July 27th, 35-year-old Sherry Domingo and 27-year-old Gregory Sanchez became the original Night Stalker's 10th and 11th murder victims. Both were attacked in Domingo's residence several blocks south of Robert Offerman's condominium, where she was living temporarily. It was owned by a relative and up for sale. The offender entered the house through a small bathroom window. Sanchez had not been tied and was shot and wounded in the cheek before he was bludgeoned to death with a garden tool. Ooh. Some believe that Sanchez may have realized that he was dealing with the man responsible for the Offerman-Manning murders and tried to tackle the killer rather than be tied up. Again, no neighbors responded to the gunshots. Sanchez's head was covered with clothes pulled from the closet. That's interesting. Was he trying to show remorse for his crime by covering up the head? That's pretty typical with people that show remorse for their murders, but I can't believe he would show remorse for his murders at this time after it being his 10th and 11th victim. Maybe he was trying to throw throw the police off? I don't know. Domingo was raped and bludgeoned. Bruises on her wrists and ankles indicated that she had been tied. Although the restraints were missing, a piece of shipping twine was found near the bed, and fibers from the unknown source were scattered over her body. Authorities believe that the attacker may have worked as a painter or a similar job at the Cali Real shopping center. 1986. On May 4th, 18-year-old Janelle Lisa Cruz was found after she was raped and bludgeoned to death in her Irvine home. Her family was on vacation in Mexico at the time of the attack. The pipe wrench reported missing by Cruz's stepfather was thought to be the murder weapon. Initially, investigators in respective jurisdictions did not think the Southern California murders were connected. A Sacramento detective strongly believed that the East Area rapist was responsible for the Goleta attacks, but the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office attributed them to a local career criminal who was later murdered. Unaware of the Goleta murders, local police in surrounding jurisdictions followed false leads related to men who were close to the female victims. One person later was charged with 2 of the murders. Many years later, the cases were linked almost entirely by DNA testing. How at this point could they not be aware of the other murders in the other jurisdictions? That's insane to me. There's been like 11 murders, all tied to the same person, and Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office wasn't aware. Someone's not doing their job. That's crazy. Communications. In December 1977, someone claimed that the East Area rapist sent a poem, Excitement's Crave, to the Sacramento Bee, the Sacramento mayor's office, and the television station KVIE. On December 11th, a masked man eluded pursuit by law enforcement personnel after alerting authorities by telephone that he would strike on Watt Avenue that night. Alright guys, we're almost done. Homework pages and punishment map, December 9th, 1978. This seems interesting. During the investigation in Danville of the 42nd attack, investigators discovered 3 sheets of notebook paper near where a suspicious vehicle had reportedly been parked. They believe the pages were dropped accidentally, perhaps by falling out of a bag. The first sheet appears to be a homework essay on a General George Armstrong Custer. The second sheet contains a journal-style entry describing a teacher who made students write lines, which the author found humiliating. One of the last sheets was a hand-drawn map of what appears to be a suburban neighborhood with the word punishment scrawled across the reverse side. Investigators were unable to identify the area depicted in the map, although the artist clearly had knowledge of architectural layouts and landscape designs. According to Detective Larry Poole, the map is a fantasy location representing the rapist's desired striking ground. Phone calls. On March 18, 1977, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office received 3 phone calls from a man claiming to be the East Area rapist. None were recorded. The first 2 calls, received at 4:15 and 4:30 p.m., were identical and ended with the caller laughing and hanging up. The final call came at 5 p.m., with the caller saying, "I'm the East Side rapist and I have the next victim already stalked and you guys can't catch me." December 2nd, 1977. A man claiming to be the rapist called the Sacramento Police Department saying, "You're never gonna catch me, East Area rapist, you dumb effers. I'm gonna F again tonight. Be careful." The call was recorded and later released. As with the previous call, the next victim was attacked that night. This is crazy. December 9th, 1977. During the 1977 Christmas season, a previous victim received a phone call that she attributed to her attacker. The caller said, "Merry Christmas, it's me again." This guy is like a psychopath. Jesus. December 10th, 1977, literally the next day. Shortly before 10 p.m. on December 10th, 1977, Sacramento authorities received 2 identical calls saying, "I'm going to hit tonight, Watt Avenue." Both were recorded, and the caller was identified as the same person who placed the phone call December 2nd. Law enforcement patrols were increased that night. And at 2:30 a.m., a masked man eluded officers after being seen bicycling on Watt Avenue Bridge. When spotted again at 4:30 a.m., he discarded the bicycle and fled on foot. The bicycle had been stolen. I feel like at this point he's just bored with what he's been doing and he wants to make it more intense for himself. He's like thrill-seeking, essentially. January 2nd, 1978. The first known rape victim received a wrong number call asking for Ray. On January 2nd, 1978, the call was recorded and police suspected that it may be the same caller who made a threatening call to her later that evening. The call was also recorded and identified by the victim as the voice of the assailant. The caller said, "Gonna kill you, gonna kill you, gonna kill you, bitch, 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 effing whore." This guy is January 6, 1978, a man claiming to be the East Area Rapist called the contact counseling service and said, "I have a problem. I need help because I don't want to do this anymore." After a short conversation, the caller said, "I believe you are tracing this call," and hung up. It seems like he's making these phone calls to almost like get caught. 1982 to 1991. In 1982, a previous victim received a call at her place of work, a Denny's restaurant, during which the rapist threatened to rape her again. According to the Contra Costa County investigators, Paul Holes, the rapist must have chanced to patronize the restaurant and recognized his victim there. In 1991, a previous victim received a phone call from the perpetrator and spoke with him for a minute. She could hear a woman and children in the background, leading to speculation that he had a family. Final call in 2001. On April 6, 2001, a day after the article in the Sacramento Bee linked the original Night Stalker and the East Area Rapist, a victim of the rapist received a call from him. He asked, "Remember when we played?" This guy. All right, we're almost done. Investigation. Before officially connecting the original Night Stalker to the East Area Rapist in 2001, some law enforcement officials, particularly from the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, sought to link the Goleta cases as well. The links were primarily due to similarities in the modus operandi. One of the already linked original Night Stalker double murders occurred in Ventura, 40 miles southeast of Goleta, and the remaining murders were committed in Orange County, an additional 90 miles southeast. In 2001, several rapes in Contra Costa County, believed to have been committed by the East Area Rapist, were linked by DNA to the Smith, Harrington, Whithunt, and Cruz murders. A decade later, DNA evidence indicated that the Domingo Sanchez murders were also committed by the East Area Rapist, also identified as the Golden State Killer at this point. So this is like his 10th name. On June 15, 2016, the FBI released further information related to the crimes, including new composite sketches and crime details. A $50,000 reward was also announced. The initiative included a national database to support law enforcement's investigation of the crimes and to handle tips and information. Eventually, through the use of genetic genealogy searching on GED Match, investigators identified distant relatives of D'Angelo, including family members directly related to his great-great-great-great-grandfather, dating back to the 1800s. That's insane. Based on this information, investigators built about 25 different family trees. The tree that eventually linked to D'Angelo alone contained approximately 1,000 people. Over the course of a few months, investigators used other clues like age, sex, and place of residence to rule out suspects populating these trees, eliminating suspects one by one until only D'Angelo remained. Identification of D'Angelo began in December of 2017 when officials led by Detective Paul Holes and FBI lawyer Steve Kramer uploaded the killer's DNA profile from a Ventura County rape kit to the personal genomics website GED Match. The website identified 10 to 20 people who had the same great-great-great-grandparents as the Golden State Killer. A team of 5 investigators working with genealogist Barbara Ray Venter used this list to construct a large family tree. From this tree, they established 2 suspects. One was ruled out by a relative's DNA test, leaving D'Angelo the main suspect. On April 18, 2018, a DNA sample was serendipitously collected from the door handle of D'Angelo's car. Trying to throw in big words now. Another sample was later collected from the tissue found in D'Angelo's curbside garbage can. Both were matched to the samples associated with the Golden State Killer crimes. Since D'Angelo's arrest, some commentators have raised concerns about the ethics of secondary use of personally identifiable information. Really? I would check in on those people. Maybe they're killers. I mean, I think it's pretty awesome. How about don't commit crimes and you have nothing to worry about? That's pretty simple. I don't understand why you would make a big fuss over it when this is clearly catching several killers now. During the investigation, several people were considered and later eliminated as suspects. Brett Glaspie from Goleta was considered a suspect by Santa Barbara County investigators. He was murdered in Mexico in 1982 before the murder of Janelle Cruz, eliminating him as a suspect. Paul Cornfed Schneider. I wonder how you get that nickname. A high-ranking member of the Aryan Brotherhood was living in Orange County when the Harringtons, Manuela Whithunt, and Janelle Cruz were killed. A DNA test cleared him in the 1990s. Joe Alsip, a friend and business partner of the victim Lyman Smith, Alsip's pastor said that Alsip had confessed to him during a family counseling session. Alsip was arraigned for the Smith murders in 1982, but the charges were later dropped, and his innocence was confirmed by DNA testing. Arrest and trial. On April 24, 2018, Sacramento County Sheriff's deputies arrested D'Angelo. He was charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances. On May 10th, the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office charged D'Angelo with 4 additional counts of first-degree murder. D'Angelo made a confession of sorts after his arrest that cryptically referred to an inner personality named Jerry, who had forced him to commit the wave of crimes that ended abruptly in 1986. According to the Sacramento County prosecutor, Thien Ho, D'Angelo said the following to himself while alone in the police interrogation room after his arrest in April of 2018. Quote, "I didn't have the strength to push him out. He made me. He went with me. He was like in my head. I mean, he's a part of me. I didn't want to do these things. I pushed Jerry out and had a happy life. I did all of those things. I destroyed all of their lives. So now I've got to pay the price." Unquote. D'Angelo could not be charged with the rapes or burglaries as the statute of limitations has expired for those offenses, but he was charged with 13 counts of murder and 13 counts of kidnapping. D'Angelo was arraigned in Sacramento on August 23, 2018, and at an April 10, 2019 court proceeding, prosecutors announced that they would seek the death penalty, and the judge ruled that cameras could be allowed inside the courtroom during the trial. On March 4th, 2020, D'Angelo offered to plead guilty if the death penalty was taken off the table, which was not accepted at the time. Why wouldn't you accept it? Just do it. On June 29th, as part of the plea bargain to avoid the death penalty, D'Angelo pled guilty to 13 counts of first-degree murder and special circumstances, including murder committed during burglaries and rapes, as well as 13 counts of kidnapping. On August 21st, 2020, D'Angelo received multiple consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. D'Angelo offered a brief apology after listening to days of pre-sentencing victim impact statements. "I've listened to all of your statements, each one of them, and I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt, I'm sure." Family's reaction. D'Angelo committed most of the offenses while he was married and raising a family. Neither his wife nor his children ever suspected he was committing serious crimes. His eldest daughter thought he was the perfect father, while his wife believed his reasons for being away from home. Incarceration. On November 20th, D'Angelo was transferred to the North Kern State Prison. As of February 21st, D'Angelo is incarcerated in protective state custody at California State Prison. There you have it. That was a long one. I don't know how I landed on the Golden State Killer. That is kind of crazy. This is like my second time doing the Wikipedia random killer pages. So give me a like on this video if you liked it. Share it. Subscribe to my page. I would appreciate it. Other than that, my voice is starting to go because I read a ton. So bye, everybody.